All right. Here we are. This is our third. The first one was rough, production-wise, but we're getting better each time with our Platinum Business, Clarendon Hills Chamber Platinum Business interview series. So what we usually start out, what I want you guys to do is kind of tell us who you are, what your business is, and then we'll do the origin story. What led you to doing what you guys are doing?
Okay.
Yeah.
Want me to go first?
Sure.
All right. So I'm Jen Alsman. I'm a Clarendon Hills mom. I've lived here for 12 years now. I have 2 daughters. They are 13 and 9. They attend Walker School and CHMS. And do you want to talk about yourself before we go into the business?
Sure.
Go for it.
Lauren Solberg, and I live in Hinsdale, but originally moved to Clarendon Hills about 11 years ago, and that's how I met Jen. 3 girls, similar ages to Jen's girls, and they are at HMS, and I have one more at Hyde Park. And yeah, so Jen and I met when our girls were in preschool, and now they're teenagers. So it's a whole nother fun adventure together.
Yes. I think you were one of my first mom friends in town. You know, when your kids are in preschool, it's really hard to meet other moms until they're in school. And so another friend in town was going to have a play date. And so we just invited everyone. And that's kind of how it all happened. We both joined actually the Clarendon Hills Infant Welfare Society chapter back. Lauren got me to join, and I'm still a member these days. So it's kind of crazy how that all comes together. And then we decided, I don't even know how it all came about, to start our business. We both have gone through our own health struggles, if anyone has visited our website or knows us at all. And so we both knew we were into health and wellness and finding a more functional, holistic approach to things and to our health. But I think just organically, we had randomly run into each other a few years ago and mentioned that we both were interested in becoming either Lauren was going to be a dietitian at the time, and I was going to maybe do personal training, and it kind of evolved into health coaching. We kind of went into something different. And we just decided, hey, this would be fun to do this together. So the business was formed a little over a year ago.
Yep.
So usually businesses are formed out of solving a problem. So I think when I read on your website that you guys were basically trying to solve your own stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about
yours. And I'm assuming Western medicine didn't have the solution that you were happy with. Because usually it's drugs, right? So a lot of times you go to the doctor and they don't say, well, it's interesting what they suggest. We'll just leave it at that. And some of the solutions. And even though I think they're getting better, in fact, last time I went to the doctor, he actually said mindfulness and meditation, which I thought that was really encouraging.
That's huge.
I've heard that lately from my primary doctor too. She definitely recommended that, and I was like, yes, I love that. And I
had another visit that they mentioned intermittent fasting, and so they're getting with it, but it's not a perfect thing. So what was your struggle? And you can, whoever wants to go first, because I know there's 2.
Yeah.
What was that led you to this journey?
So I think as we were kind of forming this bond as mom friends, because that can be a really isolating time when your kiddos are young and they aren't in school yet, and you're trying to meet people and get out of the house. So Jen and I are forming this friendship, and as we, become closer and more comfortable with each other, we start kind of sharing stories about how we felt that we weren't feeling like ourselves. And it felt a little bit more than just that new mom tiredness. It felt like we really can't, you were dealing with a little bit of different struggles, but still it was something you had never dealt with yet. So kind of just to cut to the chase, we both were helping each other. We were sharing these tidbits, not only about, new mom things, but also these health tidbits. And hey, I found this article, or hey, I found this doctor. And it just kind of became this great thing when we would meet up at the park and the kids would be playing. We would be able to swap this information. And it's so funny because talk about full circle. I feel like now when we are coaching other clients, we like specializing with moms. You find that same rhythm. Like you're able to help them and it feels so good. And you're like, because we have struggles, for me it was autoimmune disease, and it took a really long time to diagnose because most Western trained doctors, autoimmunity is still a huge mystery, right?
Right.
And unfortunately, it's still on the rise, and it runs higher in women. So it really is like at first, I just kept getting bounced around. Nobody could give me answers. And it's kind of, I feel like we were almost forced to like dig deeper and find our own answers and go in armed with that information, knowing what to ask for and what tests to ask for or what doctors or specialists to see. And it was kind of through learning all that on our own and helping each other. I think, like you said, that's where like business ideas come up, right? You're like, oh, there's a place for this. Like there, we can not only help each other, but we can help other moms. And I think that's been the basis of YOUnique Balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, I mean, my struggles stemmed from, at the time I was going through fertility treatments. That's right about when we met. I still only had my one child at the time. And it wasn't until I went through that, my doctor at the time was great, but he also suggested acupuncture, and he suggested a fertility nutritionist. And I had never even thought of those concepts of the food that I was eating could be affecting my ability to conceive a child. Like that just kind of blew my mind at the time. And at the time I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do that. I want to be like a fertility nutritionist. Because, when you're in that zone, I think it's sometimes when you're so deep into something, like that's kind of what intrigues you then at the time. Same thing, acupuncture. I was like, oh, there's a whole different way of thinking out there than Western medicine. And so that really opened my eyes to, more holistic nutrition and holistic medicine. But then also after I had my second child, then I was dealing with some more GI issues that I just kept going to different GI doctors and just more medicine. I'm like, there has to be another way. So that's when I tried to find more of a functional practitioner that looked more at diet. And that, again, was another aha moment for me where I was like, oh, there's more to it than just medication. And so that's how it kind of evolved for me. And then the pandemic hit, and it was a really good time for me to be able to go back and get certified as a health coach. And it was right around the time that Lauren decided to do it as well. Because we do see, especially with this pandemic, I think this need for just healthier options and being someone who we can work with those primary practitioners to help patients implement some of those healthy living strategies that doctors these days are starting to recommend. Like, you said your doctor recommended meditation. Well, how do you implement that as a patient? A doctor can't hold your hand through that process of implementing these new things. And that's where a health coach can come in and help with that accountability. And so we just think it's actually it was hard to start a business during the pandemic, but it was actually really great timing.
Yeah,
I think
it gave us a good chance to really get off on the right foot. Like we had that time.
Yeah. So not to dig in my deal. But so I had a recent experience where I had a friend that passed away prematurely, and it inspired me to go get a heart scan. And they were like, well, usually an event causes someone to get a heart scan. They just don't come in off the street. But I was like, what the heck? Let's just check it out. And then they found that my score was not amazing. It was like 250. And I was on, I'm going to say it's probably genetics, but it could also be the fact that I was doing this hardcore keto thing where it was the bacon diet. It wasn't clean keto at all. It was irresponsible, horrible keto, buttered coffee, that whole thing. So it made me look at that. And the first thing that I thought was disheartening is I sat down with the dietitian at the end, and they basically said, I was like, okay, cool. Now awareness is curative. Now I'm not like everybody else who's going to come and continue doing the old habits. How do I get this score down? And she told me, you don't. You will not, like, the plaster that's there is always there. And the minute she said it, I didn't believe it. I was like, okay, this is what this is I imagine this is old rhetoric and it's Western medicine. So I'm highly suspect of anything at sessions like those. And then, so I went and did my own digging, and they said, you know, you can reverse this score. You can in the arteries, and it's very doable, but it's a radical change. It's plant-based. It's the intermittent fasting. It's lots of green drink and turmeric. And so I was doing my own research. And then the heart doctor that I went to, thankfully, was open to everything I was saying. And I said, I don't want to be put on the stat. Can you please not just throw me on a statin and toss me out the door? Can we try this for 6 months and see if I'm able to turn it around?
Yeah.
And he was open to that. Without, I know you have to be careful with the weight, but sometimes are you fighting what the rhetoric is in Western medicine when you have a client that's coming in, or you're trying to work with, because you want to work with a doctor, right? But I imagine that would be a challenge if you're not on the same page and they're running a really old playbook.
I think that's where, to our benefit, I think if someone is curious enough about what health coaching can do for their health journey, that they are open to almost letting us collaborate a little bit, not only with them, but with their doctor. But to your point, if you get someone that's old school and kind of really stuck in that by the book mentality, it can be a little more difficult. But I think that's where, as health coaches, we really need to empower the client, the patient, to kind of, like you listen to your intuition. You really have to learn to listen to your body and kind of, well, you had that red flag go off. Like this, nope, something inside of me is saying there's something else I can do about this, and kind of run with that a little bit. And we can help them kind of put their own little dream team together so they really can make the progress they want to make, even if they're feeling, you know, a little kind of like stuck in the corner by their regular physician.
And I think that's too where we want to find those practitioners that are open to collaborating with us. Or like, I mean, my primary doctor I knew would be open to it, so I had reached out to her, and she actually has referred a few people to us because I knew, just based on how she interacts with me, I knew she would be open to it. And so I think, it's empowering clients too to know that they have a choice in who they see as their primary doctor. And we would love to continue to expand on those doctors that we would like to work with. Because like I said, we're new, and so we haven't done as much of that reach out yet, but that is definitely like something in our future that we are wanting to do. Especially
like anything related to women's health, even like local like OBs, and that is definitely, because it takes a collaboration. It takes a team, and that's gonna, whether it's, you know, you need your Western doc, you need a functional view, like it's a team effort.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's probably safe to say that being open to the idea of maybe having to get a new primary care physician.
Yeah, right.
So how do you find, I mean, because it's kind of throwing darts, right? You go into the first session, and you ask them some questions, and you can instantly see where their belief systems are. So is there a really good way or a vetting process for looking for a doctor that might be a little more open to, it's not new age, but more natural forms of wellness? Like
I think it's word of mouth.
Yeah.
And I think in Clarendon Hills, we have a really good resource, our Moms List. Right. That is amazing. I mean, you can kind of go on there and say, I'm looking for a doctor, that might have, be open to more holistic practices. And more times than not, you'll get people that are responding. But I think a lot of it is word of mouth.
Yep. And I also think it's important to not only just when looking for a physician, but like I go back to that, like your own little team. Look for people that are open to, that are, want to learn new things, continuing their education, staying up on current research. I think that's really important when you are looking for anyone to be on your little health and wellness journey with you.
Yeah. I think the next 3 years is going to be interesting. I know you probably heard about the book Tony Robbins just came out, Life Force. And he got together like really super smart dudes to do it. So it's not coming from him. He's almost like the researcher in the mix. And, you know, just going through that book of saying, you know, talking about the stem cell stuff that will be happening in the future, which is more like that placenta based, you know, storing your stem cells and using those can literally save your kid's life, or your life for that matter. What they're doing with nutrition and exercise and breathing and the cold therapy and all of these cool things that are out. I think in the next 3 years, I think Tony was telling a story how, I mean, you wouldn't know it going to one of his events, but he was dealing with a torn rotator cuff and he was not doing medication or surgery. You know, and he had to go to Peru to go get the stem cell treatment, and one injection was $20,000. So of course it's like the barrier of, and we already see this with like Tiger Woods, and you see all these, the care is only these new level of care is only accessible to people who have 20 grand to spend on an injection. Through your research, are you seeing kind of those same things? Like this next 5 years is going to be incredible. Like the heart scan that I took is already dated. The one that gave me they're saying right now that I can go get a different type of heart scan that's almost similar to a mammogram. And they don't, the cool thing about it is it's the high definition. So it's basically an MRI, but it's going to look at all my arteries. But they have AI, artificial intelligence, looking at the scan, and they can actually tell what is hard plaque and what is unstable plaque, because that's a piece of information we don't get from just the regular heart scan. You know, so it's going to, like if I have hard plaque, that's a different scenario than if I have a lot of unstable plaque, because that's means my chances for an event is far greater. What are some of the things that you're seeing in the next, like what, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but like, for some reason I think next 2 years, 3 years in health, and you can already see it happening with people getting more invested in making really radical changes in their health, their dietary. What are some of these trends that you see happening down the pike? What are you excited about?
I'm excited because, well, I think I can speak for both of us on this. To your point, I think the tides are changing. I think one positive from COVID is that I think it caused a big wake-up call for a lot of people health-wise. And I think everyone can benefit from that. Everyone can benefit from that, not only like the physical, you know, getting in touch with like, all right, let me make sure I'm in tip-top shape and feel really good, but also like the importance of mental health and, you know, the meditation, the mindfulness. I think that I just feel like that's like the tip of the iceberg as far as like the mind body connection. I think that's going to be a huge wave coming, which is amazing and so beneficial.
And I think also related to COVID is just slowing down. I think that really taught people that our lives were pre-COVID crazy. And I think just being more mindful, again, mindfulness, coming back to like, why are we doing all of these things? Why is my schedule so booked up? When do I get to take time for myself? And I think that's what we've heard a lot from moms lately is self-care and coming back to taking care of ourselves as moms, because I think that's something that we've pushed to the side. I mean, and like our kids, I mean, yes, they are our lives, but we need to be able to take care of ourselves before we can take care of them. And I know for us, prior to COVID, it was like, what are we doing Friday night? What are we doing Saturday night? And now I'm like, no, we're just going to be at home. Maybe we shouldn't get our kids in that extra activity. Maybe we should just take a little bit more time at home and give them some more downtime. And I think that's what these last few years have done as well, which is another form of health, is taking care of yourself. It's not always just about nutrition, which is what I love about what we do, is that it does look at more than just what we're eating, what our clients are eating.
If you were to make a plan, so maybe walk me through the process of making a plan. And obviously we don't have to get into the weeds with the specifics, but like what areas? Let's start there. 50,000 foot view. Someone comes to you and wants and from what I hear, it's a comprehensive. It's not just one thing that you're going to look at. You're going to look at multiple areas of focus. What are those top level things that you are looking at? If we had to divide health up into like buckets, like areas of focus, what are those main buckets? And then maybe looking at those buckets, what are like one or two things that you can do right now to severely improve what you're doing? And then obviously knowing that you couldn't go through the process right now. So this is going to be like a trailer to working with you guys.
Our elevator pitch.
Right. So if you had like 5 areas of focus and then maybe 1 or 2 things that you can do in each one of those areas to make drastic improvement.
So I'll start with our primary versus secondary foods.
Yes.
So we do have a comprehensive approach. We look at the whole person. We have what we call primary foods, which are going pretty much anything in your life that doesn't involve the food on your plate. The food on your plate is going to be what we call secondary foods. So prime examples of primary foods would be, what do you do for joy? What's like your stress level with your career? What's your home life? What sleep, movement,
Nutrition's in there.
nutrition, finances,
Spirituality.
So
Self-care
really is. We have our own little. We call it like our fundamentals, and it's a wheel that when we work with clients, we periodically will have them kind of chart out where they're at, and it's a great snapshot and visual for both us but more so for them to kind of see where they're falling. We have them like put a dot in the little slice of what that is, whether it's like joy or finance. So if they put it further out, they're not too stressed about it. They feel like they have a good balance with it. If the dot is placed closer to the center of the wheel, maybe that's something we need to work on. It's like gives us highlights. And then secondary foods, we feel like, which are what you're actually fueling your body with, food-wise, those are going to be easier to make better choices in the kitchen when you kind of have everything else feeling like it's balanced in your life.
So most clients come to us wanting to talk about secondary foods. It's always about nutrition. It's not always. Most of the time, it's about nutrition. How can I eat better? How can I meal plan? How can I meal prep? So we do a lot of that. But then we always bring in those fundamentals, because that is where a lot of the conversation will go. And then we'll find, they are really stressed out. They emotional eat. They're eating when they're stressed. They're eating when they're bored at night. So then we try to help them find some routines to replace that. So it's really meeting each client where they're at, which we talk about how everyone is a bio-individual, and so everyone is going to be different. So everyone's program is going to look different. Some people opt for our 3-month program, some opt for the 6-month program. But it all comes back to, typically we start with that nutrition piece, but then it kind of moves into, my career right now. I'm not that happy with what I'm doing. And then we talk through that. And then that kind of helps, you can just see that it's just like this weight lifted from their shoulders. And then it just makes those habits in the kitchen so much easier for them. And so, I'd say some of those bigger buckets that we really focus on, for sure, it's nutrition, self-care, another one. Movement. Some clients come in and they've got movement under control. Others are like, I just can't make time for myself. I can't find time for this movement. So then just, encouraging them, helping them develop a plan for themselves. I think that's where a lot of moms are stuck right now, is just that plan. They kind of just feel like their life is chaos, and we need to help them like slow down and let's take this piece by piece. And we're all about small shifts. So just really starting small with everything that we want to help them implement. And we empower the clients to really take responsibility for it. So at the end of each session, we're not setting goals for them. They're going to set the goal for themselves and what they can achieve in the 2 weeks between each of our sessions. And it can be small. It can be as small as I'm going to drink some more water for the next 2 weeks, because some moms are drinking no water. And right there, that's huge. Like if you can up your water intake, it's just going to have so many great benefits. So it's really just meeting the moms where they're at and looking at all those different parts of our fundamentals and seeing where they need support.
Yeah. And ultimately, we want them to set themselves up for success. That's kind of why we really love that we're client-led, in the sense that we'll help them get there, but they're going to get to that goal, and then we can help them action step it. But we want them, once they're done with the program, we want, like, I know we don't like saying the C word, change, but we want those shifts to take them continue on that health and wellness journey on their own.
Because more times than not, it's like, oh, I did this diet and now I just gained the weight back. Oh, I tried this and now I can't sustain that. And it's like, no, we want to help you find something that you can sustain, so you don't need us forever. And I feel like in our fitness and that health world right now, that diet culture can be really toxic for everyone, but for moms and for women, because you think, I have to do this, I have to let go of carbs and it's gonna be magic. No, as soon as you start eating carbs again, like that weight's gonna come back. And so I think it's just getting them off that, like, forget the noise that you're hearing on social media, and that just mentality. Forget all of that we've been so trained and ingrained to like keep with us, and just forget about it and just come back to a balanced plate. Finding time for yourself, adding movement into your life. It sounds really simple, right? But it's really hard. All the clients I've had are like, it's just so simple, but how come I couldn't do it? I'm like, because it's hard. It's not easy.
No, and you're used to a certain habit. I mean, you're creating new habits for yourself.
Yeah. And that's why we like the 6 months, because 6 months is a great amount of time to develop that new habit.
Right. And it sounds like you guys are dealing with there's a much bigger issue that you guys are dealing with here. It's not just about a diet. So, right. And you guys said it when you said the spiritual and career. So to me, if this may be opinion, but I think moms get run ragged and they're living for someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So at some point in that journey, the thing that they want to do that gives them a sense of real purpose, a real sense of service, can get pushed to the side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if they don't want to look at that, probably because I think they're just trying to like manage the to-do list. I know that so the emotional eating, getting to that, is like what's under, and I'm sure you guys dig into this, is what's underneath that. So I think that's the real conversation that has to happen. I know I remember hearing a speaker, and he was talking about alcoholism. And he said that for most alcoholics, drinking is not the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Drinking is the solution.
Yeah.
Right. So he said he would go around all over the country and do what he called the test tube. And the test tube would say he would go in a room full of alcoholics, and he would say, let's make an alcoholic. And he'd hold up a test tube, and they said, let's put the ingredients in for an alcoholic. And someone would finally say fear, ego, anxiety, depression, remorse, feelings of inferiority, feeling loneliness. So they mix all these things into the alcohol, into this test tube. And then he would hold up the test tube and said, what ingredient do we not put in this test tube?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And he would go all over the country, and no one would ever put alcohol in the test tube. And then you pour a little alcohol in those things, and that makes it go away until it doesn't. And then that's when it stops working.
Yeah.
And I think that's true for any kind of it. I think you can apply that to 100%. Any kind of addiction, that there's the underlying things that fuel the behavior. So are you finding is that not, I mean, we could say that I'm completely wrong and off base, but are you finding that to be a trend with moms, is where there's this emotional component that is fueling the behavior? So when they just try to change a diet, it's short-lived. Like unless they start addressing that stuff.
Yes. But then you're also unfortunately always going to run into some people though that are just so stuck. And I think that sometimes like we struggle where we want to help them, but we also know like, okay, maybe you need a therapist,
a mental health professional.
That's where we also need to know when to refer out.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a bigger issue.
And it's also, I think, educating moms that there are deeper issues. I think everyone's at this surface level. What we're finding with clients coming in is that everyone just wants help with that nutrition piece, and it's trying to explain to them that it is more than just that.
Right.
Like there's a reason why you think you can't do it on your own. There's a reason why you just want someone to tell you exactly what to eat. So let's dig to those deeper layers. And that's hard. That's really hard. And I like to, when I do those initial intake calls with people, I like to explain to them, like, we're kind of that mix between like a therapist and a nutritionist, because we do ask tough questions. They'll be like, ooh, there's like a silence, and it's hard.
Think about it for a second.
But that's how it is in therapy. You know, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I see a therapist, and sometimes I'm like, ooh, that's a really tough question. But it gets me thinking, and it helps me to take action and to make the shifts that I'm clearly there for a reason, and I want to take them. So I think that's where it's hard right now for us with this new business, is explaining to moms like what it is we actually do, is that it is deeper than just the food, because you could just keep doing these diets, but are they going to last if you don't, get to the root of what's really going on?
Right. And that's that self-awareness piece. And that's a tricky one.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's hard.
To do on your own, at least, to have like, I like to think I'm self-aware, and then I'll talk to someone, and then they'll say something, and I'm like, wait a minute, I thought I had, well, you talked to my wife. And that's where you really find out how not well you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I thought I was handling that. No. So I'm glad we got to nerd out on some and take a deep dive on that.
Yeah, that was great.
What is it? So to wrap it up, what do you love about Clarendon Hills? What is it? What's serving? Because this is a unique community. If you think about it, even just the layout, it's almost got like a fairy tale layout to it. No main annex. We don't have a main street. Through the town. And even when you look at, it seems like there's something different. And I could be totally biased, and I could be wrong. I went to school at Walker, so I'm a Walker kid. Yeah. And actually, I lived in Hinsdale at a time where they were busing kids to go to Walker, because Walker was doing really innovative, more artistic things at the time.
That's
where you could do that. You could just say, hey, can we go to Walker? Sure.
Right.
And they would actually send a bus over to Hinsdale. But what is it about Clarendon Hills that is a unique community? What do you think, in your opinion?
I mean, I love the small town feel, that I know my kids can just ride their bike downtown and be safe. And I just know, I mean, living here for as long as I have and being as involved as I am in the community, just seeing that familiar face everywhere I go. It's just, I don't know, it's just a happy place. And everyone is really down to earth, and they're just real. So it's a great place. And that my kids can walk to school. I mean, you take it for granted, because then I have family that lives in other places. Like, you can just walk to school. It takes us 15 minutes to get to school. And that's just so unique, that our kids can just ride their bikes to their friends' houses, as opposed to like living somewhere where you have to get driven to a friend's house. It's just nice to be able to develop really deep friendships. I mean, clearly, in a bigger town, I don't know if this would have happened for the two of us. To be able to have that support system of moms supporting moms, and really families supporting families, I think is just
that's what I was going to say. I think the draw is community, which is ultimately what we want for our business. Like, we want it to be a community, another outlet for moms. I know that's important to us. And I would say support. I think there's just amazing support, even for local businesses, for each other, I think.
100%. Everyone is very
Yeah.
supportive.
Love it. Well,
Yeah.
Thank you guys. That was good.
Thank you.
That's so great.
Great,
Thanks.
great interview. Love it. Awesome.
Yay.